Welcome to the Stronger Than Steel podcast with your host, Austin Davidson and John Keir, talking Steelers all the time. Now, here's Austin and John.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Stronger Than Steel podcast. Today I'm doing a solo episode. As John said at the end of the last episode, he's a little busy this week, so I'm going to do the preview since, again, there's not really much to say in the preview, especially on the Chiefs side. But I do have a few things to say about them in this episode because there were some interesting Chiefs that I wanted to talk about that piqued my interest. But it's going to be a pretty short episode, not going to be much to talk about. But I'm going to basically do what we did last week. Last week we did draft style, except this time since I'm alone, I'm just going to pick 10 guys that I'm going to be looking out for. Guys that either didn't play last week or I didn't mention, or if I did, it was just briefly. I didn't actually pick them as a player to look for. So we'll get into that in a moment. But first, I just wanted to talk about some Steelers news. And the team has cut former AAF linebacker J.T. Jones and newly signed cornerback Jermaine Ponder, and in corresponding moves, signed linebacker Christian Kuntz and tight end Mickey Crum. While Kuntz is a Pittsburgh native, having gone to Duquesne University and setting the record there for the most sacks with 30 and a half, and had spent time with both the Broncos and Jaguars in 2018, but had yet to find a team for the 2019 season until now. Crum, on the other side, he comes from Louisville, where he had the best season as a redshirt freshman, amassing 224 yards on 22 catches through 12 games. He had a tryout for the 49ers minicamp this year, but didn't make it, so this is going to be his first time actually being on a 90-man roster, as far as I know. Before we actually get into what I want to talk about, there's one more thing I wanted to talk about, and it's NFL news. First of all, I just wanted to say wish good luck to Tavon Young on a speedy recovery. He apparently suffered a neck injury in this preseason game that happened tonight, and I didn't see the injury. I just heard that John Harbaugh announced that he's out for the season, so I hope it's not too gruesome or too terrible, but I wish him a speedy recovery. And then another thing I want to mention is on the last podcast we didn't get to it, but something I wanted to talk about is the Antonio Brown helmet fiasco. The whole last week, the Raiders were doing the best they could to... This story is just amazing. It starts with that he's staying away from practice because he has frostbite on his feet. Already an amazing story. How do you get frostbite on your feet in the middle of summer? Apparently he went through cryotherapy in France and apparently didn't wear the proper footwear, and it gave him frostbite on his feet, and he was sitting out. And that was the storyline. And people were somehow Pro Football Talk saw through and was like, they're being awfully strange when it comes to talking about this injury and why he's staying away. And little did we know there's more to this story. About 3 days later after that, there comes out this thing that Antonio Brown is holding out until he can wear his helmet, because his helmet, which I forget the actual name of the helmet, wasn't approved anymore. The league doesn't approve of helmets 10 years or older. And so he was being told he couldn't use his helmet anymore, and he was frustrated because it was apparently he liked it for how his vision was and stuff, and he kept trying to bring it into practice, and the Raiders wouldn't let him because it wasn't approved. So what ends up happening is then he threatens, I'm going to retire if I can't use my old helmet, which is just peak funny. It's great to see from the outside, and just kind of makes you feel like good about the trade a little bit. I mean, it went from bad at first, or at least okay, it maybe to some, to now it's just like funny. You get to like watch from a distance and see how it's going. Then he quickly gave that up after he filed for arbitration and he was denied. But now he's been looking for on social media for that old helmet, because the helmet actually got stopped being made in 2011. So the version of his helmet that he has, he could find one that's a 2011 and it could be approved because it's within 10 years. The unfortunate part for him is that it only lasts about 2 years if he continues playing past this. So he might retire after he can't use his old helmet anymore. Who knows? That would be hilarious, but and it would be a waste of his talent. But regardless, I just thought we should mention that funny little tidbit if you guys hadn't already seen it. But let's get into the game. So starting with the players to look for in this game, I said players that didn't play. So I'm starting my list off with Deontay Johnson. I was so sure he was going to be ready last week, but now he's definitely going to be ready. He's been practicing, and I'm ready to see him kick the tires in here. It's going to be fun to watch him, see how he does. I'm looking for him to play with other guys on the field like Dante Moncrief and stuff, who I'll actually get to in a second because he's number 2 on the list. I want to see how he performs with guys that are projected to be starters. I want to see how he stands up. I'm not exactly expecting much. The Justin Lane experience from the first preseason game sort of humbled me to that third-round picks aren't supposed to contribute immediately, and so I'm not going to be overhyped about it, but I'm excited to see what Deontay Johnson could do when he gets on the field. And it's going to be interesting. He's playing with Mason Rudolph, who right now projects as the number 2 quarterback, so this is going to be good. But moving along, like I said, Dante Moncrief was my number 2. It broke today that Moncrief had a broken finger. We were told that for a while it was just a dislocated finger or a finger injury, but he apparently broke his finger. But he's back in practice and catching balls, so I guess it's all good now, or at least as good as it can be. But regardless, I'm looking for him to also play in this game because obviously he's a new toy for the Steelers. We haven't seen what he can do yet. I've heard a lot of great things from practice, and him and Ben seem to have a pretty solid connection so far, at least through training camp. A lot can change through preseason games, though, so it's going to be interesting to see how he performs in this one, and I'm definitely going to be looking out for it, as all of you should as well. Going to the other side of the ball, I wanted to pick Tazar Skipper. Skipper had a pretty solid first preseason game that maybe put him on the map to get him a little bit more reps or a little bit earlier on to play against some stronger competition. I felt like last week was a pretty good showing from him, so I want to see more. I want to see, because he was applying pressure. He had 4 quarterback hits last week, just like Ulysses Gilbert, but he was quieter because he didn't have the pick and he didn't have as many sacks as Gilbert did, but Skipper was still performing really well last week, putting on pressure. And so I'm looking for him to put on that pressure again to kind of challenge or make sure he lands on the practice squad. Right now, I think he does actually make it to the practice squad, maybe a little. I don't actually think on the last episode me and John put him on the practice squad, but I think he could make it. Right now, he probably is on the outside looking in, but if he can put up another performance like that, I think he's earned himself on the practice squad. And who knows? He's probably already above Sutton Smith. But now let's go to number 4. So number 4 I had to preface with right now Zach Gentry and Christian Williamson are both hurt. So the Steelers tight end either 3 and 4 respectively or flip-flop. It doesn't really matter. I think Zach Gentry is number 3 right now, but it's up for a debate. But they're both sitting out, and they obviously thought it was a big deal that they were running out of tight ends since they signed Mickey Crum just today. But so I'm going to have Xavier Grimble here because I expect Xavier Grimble to play a lot. I think Vance McDonald should not be playing in this preseason, so it makes it good for the younger, newer tight ends. So look out for Xavier Grimble is who I'm saying is my player to watch, but you could also watch out for Kevin Rader. You could look out for Mickey Crum, even though he only had 1 practice, because we even saw last week that Trayvon Mathis was able to start without even getting a practice in. So definitely watch out for all the tight ends here, but I'm picking Xavier Grimble as the top guy there. But after Xavier Grimble, like I sort of mentioned him for a second, Sutton Smith. Sutton Smith actually got back into full team practice today, which is a good sign for him playing in this game. So this might be another Deontay Johnson scenario where I'm like, I think he's going to be ready, but he's not. So he might not play. But if he does play, he's got a lot of catching up to do. He probably knows that. He probably has it on his mind. So I'm going to be watching him to see if he can have a breakout preseason game as he was doing in the early training camp before he got injured. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on him, looking for him to put on pressure, maybe even see him with a few fullback snaps. Who knows? I want to see if he could be a reliable backup fullback in case Roosevelt Nix goes down. But I'm also not confident, even if he is healthy, that he will get fullback snaps. But it will definitely be interesting to see how the Steelers use him in this preseason game if he's ready to go. And he's totally a guy that you should be watching. I definitely have him on there. Another guy I alluded to earlier after Sutton Smith is Justin Lane. I'm looking for Justin Lane to have a bounce-back game. Me and John agreed that he needs a redshirt season. It's without a doubt that he's not ready. For a while, we thought he might be the cornerback 4, but there's no way. It's got to be Cameron Sutton, and even Artie Burns in front of him. He's got to be the last cornerback on the depth chart as of right now. Obviously, he's not going to get cut. It's a pretty high pick, and it's not necessarily bad that a guy drafted in the 3rd round needs development. That's okay. You can. That's like a normal thing. You shouldn't expect 3rd round picks to immediately come out and ball out. At least not everyone. There's going to be a few that are sleepers that someone found in the draft and got a steal, but some really do need development. And I think that's the best course of action for Justin Lane. But it's going to be interesting to see if he could bounce back from a performance where he gave up 8 of 9 targets and just didn't show good tackling. I mean, looking for at least one of the things to improve, whether he plays less soft coverage and plays a little bit more tougher there, or he is tackling better, and maybe a turnover. If he's tackling better and gets turnovers, I'll give him a little bit better. He might be able to jump Artie Burns, but Artie Burns always has a good training camp, so it's really rough to say that he'll ever jump anyone this year because of he just seems locked in for that number 6 spot if the Steelers choose to keep 6 cornerbacks. Regardless, moving on, I'm going to stay with defensive backs. I'm going to pick P.J. Locke. P.J. Locke was super underwhelming to me last game. I was even annoyed with him for one play. He could have jumped on a fumble, but instead tried to pick it up and run with it, and the Steelers were not able to recover that fumble, and it bounced around forever. And you just want to see him just jump down on it and just secure it instead, because it could have ended the game right there, but the game continued on. It was very close till the end. Obviously, the Steelers only won 30-28. But so what I'm looking for him in this game is better play, more snaps. I want to see a little bit more snaps because he wasn't really memorable to me. I saw more Cameron Kelly and even Marcellus Branch in this game than I saw P.J. Locke. And P.J. Locke was paid a pretty solid amount for an undrafted free agent rookie as a signing bonus. So I'm looking for P.J. Locke to maybe step up and show something in this game a little bit more than last week. I believe he finished with 2 tackles last week, but they weren't memorable. And I'm especially looking for special teams because the path to this roster as a fringe player, no matter if it's offense or defense, is going to be playing on either side of the on special teams and stuff. But yeah, that was PJ Locke. So let's transfer over to our next player, and that's Devlin Hodges. I thought that Devlin Hodges could have been the second best quarterback to play last week. If it wasn't for the quality of guys he was on the field with, there was a lot of drops, and he was obviously the 4th-team quarterback here. So I'm looking for Devlin Hodges to maybe get a few more snaps this week. Maybe see if he could challenge Josh Dobbs for that quarterback 3 spot, or maybe even Mason Rudolph. This is the problem. See, he wouldn't. If Mason Rudolph ends up as the quarterback 3, Devlin Hodges is not going to be able to challenge him because they gave him a first-round grade, and this is just how it is. They're going to keep developing him. However, if it's competing with Josh Dobbs, which it looks like right now, Devlin Hodges actually kind of has a shot. If the Steelers do intend to keep 3 quarterbacks, I mean, why not? And I mean, last offseason there was trade talks for Josh Dobbs. Not that I really want to see him go because I feel like he's done decently with the Steelers from what I've seen, and obviously had that big completion to Juju in the Raiders game this past season when Ben went down. But I do think that he is still worth at least a little bit as a trade target for a team that's needy of a backup quarterback that's sort of like his style. Because if I'm being honest with you, and I'm going to be straight up right here, I think Lamar Jackson and Josh Dobbs are the exact same skill level. So if the Ravens could start Lamar Jackson with that idea in mind, I think Josh Dobbs can be worth something to another team that might want that. Because Josh Dobbs can actually throw comparatively to Lamar Jackson. I mean, he's not very accurate, but he's got a cannon. And but his mobility is what really sets him apart. Josh Dobbs' mobility is really good, and it's not something the Steelers are used to. But I got to get back to the point at hand, which was Devlin Hodges. Devlin Hodges is, I think, a guy that can prove himself to be a quarterback 3, and I mean, he doesn't really have much to prove. It's not like he's going to be starting anytime soon or playing anytime soon if Mason Rudolph wins the number 2 job. So I'm looking for Devlin Hodges in this game to do something interesting. After Devlin Hodges, I have Fred Johnson. Fred Johnson did really good in his first game. He looked like a clear roster guy. If not, he's definitely making to the practice squad. But I think that he is going to prove himself in this game, and I think that's why he's a player to watch here. I feel like he's going to be able to handle the Chiefs' pass rushers and stuff, and he's going to show why he deserves to stick around on the 53. So that's really what he's proving. Fred Johnson just needs to prove whether he's practice squad worthy or whether he is actual roster worthy, because I feel like he's got a good shot to do so, and it's going to be interesting to see him play against ideally some of like the number twos. I'm hoping to see Fred Johnson play against the number twos, the backups, because that's going to be telling. I hope he doesn't come into like at the end of the game and versus like the end of the roster guys. But anyhow, I have one more guy, and it is former AAF player Casey Sales. Casey Sales, I felt like I didn't really have much to say about after last game. I was really I think in my roster prediction early on, before even training camp started, I think I had him on there, but he hasn't really shown much yet. I haven't really heard much out of his camp, which could be a good, could be a bad thing. Maybe he's just performing just decently, just not making mistakes, which is a good thing, but I'm hoping to see Casey Sales put in work here, because in the AAF he was pretty good. He was rated one of the PFF's top defensive linemen when the AAF was there, and I feel like I want to see more out of him this game. So I'm watching him for Sales, because if he doesn't really put up big numbers this game, I think it's possible that he could be like the next JT Jones, that AAF guy that just got cut literally today. And stuff, so he could just be like, all right, well, now you're the end of the roster, guy, so we're going to replace you with some other defensive lineman that might want a chance. So I'm looking for Casey Sales to show some stuff here. But that's my 10 players. So just to recap, it was Deontay Johnson, Dante Moncrief, Tuzar Skipper, Xavier Grimble, Sutton Smith, Justin Lane, PJ Locke, Devlin Hodges, Fred Johnson, and Casey Sales. The list dominated mostly by actually, I think it was an even split. It's either 4-6 or 5-5. So I thought it was mostly offensive guys, but I kind of routed it out at the end. But regardless, that's for the Steelers. Now, guys who I'm looking at on the Chiefs, because I just excited and want to see them play. Juan Thornhill. If you go back and watch the pre-draft process where we looked at safeties, I was pretty high on him on the pre-draft process. It was pretty hard not to rank him above Nasir Adderley. In fact, I might have ranked him higher than Nasir Adderley. It was really tough because they were both really good safeties. Adderley just came from Delaware while Thornhill played at Virginia. So I thought that Thornhill had higher competition because Adderley played against my school at Stony Brook. So, but anyhow, I'm watching Juan Thornhill in here because he was a ball hawk in his college, and I really wanted the Steelers to grab him. But, I mean, it is what it is. And I'm actually going to transfer over to another safety, and this is the last Chiefs player I'm watching, and this safety I was high on 2 years ago instead. So this one is Armani Watts. Armani Watts, I was looking up some stuff for the Chiefs because I wanted to do in-depth and actually look at it and try and see, like, what do Chiefs beat writers think is going to happen. And Armani Watts is a guy that's wrote down as, like, the last defensive back to make it on the roster, like, out of the Chiefs defensive back. So he could easily be on the outside looking in. Because I didn't see the Chiefs' first game, and so I'm just excited to be able to see what he can do. Because I was very high on Watts. I gave him, I think, a second-round grade. He was drafted in the 5th. So I just want to see if he can prove people wrong. Because apparently teams didn't see what I saw. But yeah, so Armani Watts and Juan Thornhill are who I'm watching on the Chiefs. A pair of safeties. Hopefully they get to play. But that really wraps it up for Season 4, Episode 21. This was the Steelers vs. Chiefs preview. If you have any questions, send it to our email. I'll leave all the descriptions to the email, the social media like Twitter, Instagram, SoundCloud, and our website down below. So everybody, this will be the ending of the Stronger Than Steel podcast. Have a good night.
You have been listening to Stronger Than Steel podcast. Thank you for joining us today, and don't forget to check out our website listed in the description below.